Hi everybody, it's George again, 59-year-old based in Bridgewater in Somerset here in England. Briefly, my history is one of curing morbid obesity and type 2 diabetes by using the carnivore diet. However, the first thing I want to talk about is what's happening over in LA at the moment. Thankfully, we've had a positive update from Dawn, my big sister in carnivore. She's outside of LA. She hasn't been affected directly by the fires, although she has had a power outage, which has meant that she's had to use a gas stove for cooking and has had to use candlelight, which is quite exciting, but she's looking forward to getting the power back. So our thoughts are with you, Dawn, and carry on with your positive attitude and carry on posting some great videos. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, many of you will be here because I'm part of the carnivore community. However, I'm also a military veteran, and I know that some of my original subscribers actually came to this channel on the back of an analysis I wrote in comments on the Real Bravo 20, which can be found on YouTube. The story there basically is a chap called Michael Asher went over and retraced the steps of the first Gulf War and did some fascinating stuff on it. I use my status as a Gulf War veteran myself to actually critique the video, and I know a lot of people, quite a few people actually subscribe to me on the back of that. So I thought we'd go off carnivore a little bit today and do a little bit of my family history, the military history of my family, as we have had a long 3-generational history. And today we'll start with my grandparents and how they served their country in 2 world wars, in one case, and the other one in the First World War. Both my grandparents were teenagers when war broke out in 1914, and my father's father, who is also George Goodenough, he actually was a founder member of the Royal Flying Corps. Now, he didn't actually go up in aircraft himself. He was ground crew for the balloon squadron, for the observational balloons, and he was at the Battle of Ypres, or Wipers as he would have called it. It's spelled Y-P-R-E-S, and it was his job basically. He was a mechanic, so he had to maintain the observational balloons, and he used to wind them up in the morning with the observer on board, and then they would often be attacked by small arms fire from the German lines. They would get holes in them. He would wind them down in the evening, and then would carry out the necessary maintenance to get them working again the next day. So I'm very proud of the fact that I actually had a member of the founder member of the Royal Flying Corps in my family. And of course, for those of you who don't know, the Royal Flying Corps then became the Royal Air Force, which served with such distinction in the Battle of Britain and beyond in the Second World War. My mother's father, William Hobbs, he joined the Navy very young, and he actually served in the First World War. He was a shipwright, a carpenter in other words, so he had to maintain the integrity of the ship and make sure that any running repairs were done as was necessary. He had a very long career in the Navy. Started off as a seaman status, but retired as a lieutenant much later in life. During the Second World War, he was on various different ships, including the HMS Hood. However, luckily he was not on board the Hood when she was sunk by the Bismarck. Only 3 survived that, so in many ways I'm lucky to be here. What with one grandfather serving on the front line in the First World War and the second grandfather just missing out on the Hood. However, that was not the closest he came to death in the Second World War, because he was on board a ship, and I'm ashamed to say I can't remember the name of her, HMS something or other, and she had a wooden flight deck, and like the Hood, she took a shell through the flight deck, which ended up in the engine room and caused a hole, and actually caused a hole in the hull of the ship below decks. Water started flooding in. She was in danger of sinking, in great danger of sinking. And the skipper, the captain, asked my grandfather if he would lead a team of his people below decks to attempt to, sorry about that. Yeah, to attempt to basically save the ship by patching her up. And it was a do or die mission. The captain stayed on the bridge, and he said, "You either succeed or we all go down together." They succeeded. The ship was saved, and my grandfather lived to produce my mother, and of course here I am. So it's incredible, really, when you think about it, how lucky I am to be here today, because there were several attempts to make sure that my family lineage was stopped. But we'll learn more about how my father got sunk in the next episode of this. But however, the knock-on story of this is that my grandfather actually was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. He had to go to Buckingham Palace and was awarded it by King George VI in person. So very proud bit of family history there. That Distinguished Service Cross ended up next to my grandfather, where he sat down in his armchair in later life. And every Saturday morning I would go into his cottage, because it was attached to our house, and I would polish that DSC. I remember on one occasion I looked over Grandpa and said, "Grandpa, one day I'm going to have a medal myself." He gave me a pat on the head and said, "Of course you are, young man, of course you are." So anyway, I was able to keep my promise to him, but unfortunately he passed on by the time I did. We will hear that particular story a lot later in this 3-part series, because we are 3-generational. So we'll do my parents' generation next, followed by my own generation. So I hope you stay with me. I'm sorry if my carnivore friends are not particularly interested in this, but I owe it to my military subscribers as well to give them something to dwell upon. So that's the story of my grandparents' generation, and we'll move on next time to my parents' generation, which includes my Uncle Alan, who was shot on the D-Day beaches, my father, who was sunk, my maternal aunt's husband, who is a ferry swordfish pilot, and my mother herself, who was part of the Civil Defence Force in the Second World War. So I look forward to giving you an update on them. But in the meantime, stay safe, everybody, and I'll see you next time.